Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the muscle mechanic. Today's guest is Matt Christman. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Quinn, thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Matt. I'm excited to chop it up with you, my man. The first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
A few of my favorite bodybuilders of all time. That's for me, it's not the most complicated, but I have to say Lee Priest, Flex Wheeler, and James Flex Lewis.
Very, very cool, my man. Now, at what age did you start lifting weights, Matt? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I started lifting weights around 13, 14 years old. That was due because of sports. So the main sport I really played was football. So, of course, with football, you have to put on a little bit of size so you don't get ran over. You're 5 foot nothing and 120 pounds soaking wet, if that. So football has got me into the weights pretty much.
Excellent. So I like to use that latter question just to kind of get into my guest's childhood, upbringing, backstory. So talk about where you grew up. Talk about some of the sports you played and some of those influences on you during childhood up to about high school, and then we'll transition from there.
All right. So basically, obviously, what got me into the weights was football, like I said earlier. And growing up, I've always been, not the tallest, definitely not the fastest, not the strongest. So, I always, lag behind in the physicality standpoint growing up. So, but, I was always actually pretty fast as a kid. So that kind of was my safe haven for sports, was my speed. Definitely wasn't strong, but I was fast. So, as they say, is speed kills. But so getting into Pee Wee football was kind of was when I first fell in love with sports, football especially, obviously, and just being able to hit and tackle people without any repercussions was always, a nice little release for a kid like me. I kind of probably got picked on a little bit just because of being half Korean, so had to deal with that a little bit, but and some of that frustration was released on the football field, so it was a nice little outlet. And I grew up I was an Army brat, so I grew up in the military type family. My dad was in the Army, served for about 20 years. And he's kind of the one that got me into the weights. And I always had an interest too, because I always see my dad, having protein shakes, taking the creatine, things like that. And he was also a leader of his platoon. So he would run PT and all that as well for a lot of the platoons for their fitness tests and all that. And sometimes I would go along and join him on PTs, doing the runs, the jumping jacks, the push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff. And so that kind of sparked even more interest in as far as like the body and being, building, muscle and all that. So kind of got started at a pretty young age and exposed to it. I used to see my dad having muscle magazines around, like the Muscle Fitness, the Muscle Mag, that being around. So I always find myself skimming through it and, skim actually across, look at Lee Priest, look at his transformation when he was a fat, 200 and whatever pounds to shredded for his stage. And me and my dad was kind of like flabbergasted, like, is that even possible? So that kind of sparked even more of that fire in me to, get into physical fitness.
Now, you mentioned being a military brat. Talk about, what that experience was like, because I know for a lot of young kids that can be difficult. So what was your experience being, a military brat, having your dad in the military?
It wasn't too bad though. I guess the only downside of it was obviously he moved frequently. And so I probably moved like 4 times, I think, give or take, from Korea and Missouri. Yeah. So yeah, we moved around 4 times. So you establish friendships with people, and you kind of get pulled away from that, from being in the military, having to move a lot. So that's probably the hardest part. But I didn't really have a hard time adjusting because I've always been kind of a social butterfly, you know, always got on my report cards, not always attentive because I'm always busy bumping my gums, talking to, you know, other students and trying to be the class clown. So it wasn't too hard for me. I guess the hard part was, you know, grew up in a semi-strict home, you know, a Christian background, military background. So put those two together, you got yourself a recipe of strict and discipline. So that kind of definitely, as far as that was probably the difficult part, is always kind of being on your, almost like walking around on eggshells, you know, making sure you're not doing anything wrong or, you know, saying anything wrong. But yeah, that was probably the hard part.
Now, you mentioned just a minute ago that you're half Korean, so I'm assuming your mom is Korean then?
Yeah, my mom's Korean. My dad's a white. So they met when he was.
Talk about that. I want you to talk about that because you said that was maybe a little bit of a you know, a struggle for you, maybe at times, maybe getting picked on or made fun of a little bit. What was that like for you, and how did you work through that as a kid?
So obviously lived in Korea for a while, for about the first 4 or 5 years of my life. So I remember vaguely about it. I was actually really spoiled because I was actually the first grandson on my Korean side. So I was always, you know, spoiled with everything. And I was actually growing up, it's actually kind of funny. I guess I would call it karma. I was actually a bully to a lot of the Korean kids in Korea. My dad one time said he came home from work one time and I went over and kicked over this kid's little sand structure he made. I went over there and kicked it over and grabbed him by the shirt and said something in Korean to him. And then obviously I moved over stateside and I got the other end of, I got the opposite end of getting bullied for obviously being half Korean, you know, looking different from all the other normal kids, I guess, at that time, you know. So it was a little bit of struggle, you know, but I kind of was class clown, so I would joke about it kind of before, you know, they could, you know, say anything to make me feel bad. So that's kind of how I kind of coped with it, and I kind of kept things a lot of bottle inside. I kind of ignored it, you know, and kind of, because, you know, I tried not to let it fluster me, but deep down, I think it really did kind of make me, you know, upset. You know, why don't these kids like me, or why are they making fun of me? But, you know, kind of just was able to kind of find a coping mechanism and through humor and kind of getting through it. So that's kind of what I did throughout my whole life, really. So
excellent. Now, I want to talk about your mom just for a minute here, because obviously your dad, excuse me, your dad being in the military, I'm sure, you know, he had, you know, probably a pretty strong personality. And you said he kind of is the one that, you know, exposed you to fitness and the strength training and stuff like that. What has your mom given to you, or what was something that she instilled in you as a young person?
Oh man, you know, the Koreans, if you're not studying, you ain't going outside, you know, type thing. So, so basically being disciplined with everything, making sure you're getting things done, you know, and stay persistent on homework and things like that. So that's what I think I can kind of take away from my mom, and also the drive as well. She's a very driven person. My dad's actually, though he was a disciplinarian then, he's actually a pretty laid back, chill guy in reality. So, but I get, as far as the fieriness and the personality and the discipline and the drive from not only from my dad, but from my mom for sure, especially staying persistent on things and following through with everything that you need to get done. So yeah, that's kind of what I get through my mom.
Very cool. Now, once you got into high school and you started to think about, you know, post high school, what were you kind of thinking you wanted to do? What did you want to be when you grew up? And then once you graduated high school, Matt, what did those initial years look like? I know from doing a little research before our conversation, you got a bachelor's of science in health science. So just talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah. So after high school, I knew I was into fitness and that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Like I I got into personal training. I liked it for a little bit, but it wasn't as fulfilling. As I was going through my bachelor's degree, I was going through, which I got a degree, obviously, in human performance and exercise science with a minor in health promotion. So I was actually liked the health promotion side more than anything. I just didn't feel as fulfilled, like I said, doing personal training when I was doing that as a side gig for work. And I also helped run a supplement store too while I was in college as well. So I was also in the supplement industry as well for over 10 years. And so that kind of got me more interested, obviously, in transitioning from personal training to overall physique development through nutrition, supplements, and obviously lifting as well. So, and that's what kind of, and really and truly, like I got through college and got my degree because my mom wanted me to. So I kind of was halfway forced in a sense to finish my degree. So
Thanks, Mom, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so let's before we kind of continue in your professional career, because I reached out to you because of the body work type stuff that you do, and I'm a huge proponent of that. And I want to geek out on it with you here in a minute. But you also have competed in bodybuilding. You have a passion, obviously, for bodybuilding, which makes the body work for me even more intriguing, having that perspective of both. But talk about getting into bodybuilding. First of all, why did you want to compete initially? And then talk about that first competition and just unpack some of that competition history for us, please, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was obviously in college. I was working out and all that, and I had a workout partner, and he was into bodybuilding. We used to, before we would train, we used to eat our pre-workout meals while watching Ronnie Coleman videos, YouTube videos, and so that's kind of what we did to get amped up, watching him, Branch Warren videos, all that. So, we were working out one day, and I guess he kind of saw the development of my legs. He's like, "Man, you ever thought about competing?" I was like, "No." He's like, "You should really look into it, and I can get you. I know a guy who's a bodybuilder that can probably help you out." And so that's what kind of sparked my interest in bodybuilding and getting that aesthetic look and all that. And so reached out to the best local guy that that in the gym that's competed before. So reached out to him and kind of got set up with a meal plan and went through, I think, 12 to 14 weeks of prep, suffering, and it was quite an experience. Never experienced anything like that before. I didn't know. I think like the last 4 weeks was probably the most miserable. I was like having a short temper, short patience on a lot of things, and I was like, my parents at the time didn't understand what I was doing. They were like, "Why do you do this? Like, what's wrong with you?" It's like, it's just part of the process, And I would just, work out, train, eat, sleep, school, and work, and that's what I would do. And at that 2 weeks out, or obviously, that was when the real suffering happened. I was eating like bull turkey or chicken and like no sodium, the whole old school approach. And then finally got to that week out, the week of the show, and I'd never been so happy in my life. Like, I was like, why everyone in check-ins were like looking miserable and all that. Me, I was like, all right, guys, let's do this, And so that experience was pretty cool. I was weighed in as a bantamweight at 131 pounds, probably soaking wet. And that was my first show, and actually placed first in my novice class and placed second or third in the open class. So that was probably a really fun experience for me, displaying, all your hard work and all that. And after that, once you get those trophies and all that, and your hard work being awarded, you kind of got hooked, and she's been doing it ever since.
So talk to me a little bit about some more of the other competitions that you've done, Matt. And do you have any future plans to compete? Do you have any aspirations to earn your IFBB Pro card? Talk about that before we kind of get into the professional side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So after that show, kind of sparked, I competed almost every year after that. I obviously if I knew what I knew today that I knew then, you know, obviously I'd probably be a better bodybuilder. Because, you know, basically off season was, I treated like, oh yeah, let's eat whatever you want, you know. And so actually gradually moved up weight classes, went up to lightweight and then eventually to middleweight. Competed from, let's see, started in 2009. So competed in 10 and 11. And then I competed in Flex Lewis's first annual Flex Lewis Classic. And he actually remembers that to this day because one of my best friends was good friends with Flex. And so he, so yeah, that was pretty cool. And Flex actually still remembers to this day, like I said, that I did his first show. So I did a show 2 years in a row, and then stepped on some bigger stages like the Kentucky Muscle, which that's still one of my favorite shows to do to this day. And I think the last Kentucky Muscle I did was obviously that show at the time was generally 2 weeks before nationals. And so I did that show and I competed with some of the guys that were competing at nationals in 2 weeks. And I felt proud because I was able to hold my own and placed fifth out of some of the top, you know, welterweight, middleweight classes there. So welterweight actually. So yeah. And then after that, I've been stuck at middleweights. My body's been wanting to grow. So for my future, I competed this past year in August at the Tampa Pro Amateur Show and didn't place as I felt like I should. So placed out of the top 5, which, you know, was a bummer, but I brought my best look. So I was totally fine with that. And then immediately after that, kind of just went my off season. And so did a few. So I work with a new coach out in the UK. His name is Gareth from the Physique Collective. I don't know if you're familiar with Joe Jeffrey or them. Their business there. And working with him has been going really well. So we kind of did like a mini off season the past few months. And now, so I'm getting married on New Year's Eve. We're doing a mini cut. And then after the mini cut's over, going to do straight into off season for all of 2022, trying to move up a weight class to light heavyweight and see what we can do from there. So hopefully, maybe, you know, it'll be awesome to get an IFBB pro card. You know, that's always a goal. So I just want to compete at nationals or USAs and kind of see how well I stack up to some of the top physiques in the nation. So well, that's my ultimate goal, to see how I compare and how well I do. If I get a pro card, awesome. If I don't, hey, I'm here for the experience, and I can say that I competed with some of the best. So
I love that, man. I appreciate just that perspective of like doing it for the love of the game, so to speak. Right now, what is it you said after your first competition? You know, you got the trophies and everything, and that kind of, you know, that positive reinforcement always, you know, pulls us in no matter what we're doing in life. But just, you've been doing it now for several years. What is it that kind of continues to pull you back to competing and, you know, stay in the game of bodybuilding, so to speak, Matt?
Just be, for me, it's after that first competition, it was just like that, just clicked for me. It's like, man, this is, you know, good competition. You know, you're not only you're helping yourself physically, but it's like a discipline factor of how disciplined you're exercising, that discipline, and how, you know, how far you can carry yourself through, you know, get through the ups and the downs of prep, you know, kind of seeing through that. So kind of like that feeling. You feel accomplished when you start something, you go through the ups and downs of it, and you come out on top. It's just, you know, it's like a sweet victory for yourself, you know. So that's what kind of sparks, you know, the continuance of it. See how much better I can get daily. Every year.
When you are deep in prep, what is kind of the hardest thing about the bodybuilding lifestyle when you're in prep?
In prep is staying, consistency is not an issue. I would say for me personally would be, I get really bad hunger pains. Like I love food, and I finally got kind of past that the past couple of years. So like during that time was like, I get a very bad sweet tooth, you know, and so that was probably, for me, that was probably one of the hardest parts. It was just more of a mental game, and I kind of developed a stronger mental game, I believe, these past few years of bodybuilding. So being mentally strong. So I mean, just once you go through that, you know, tough time, the rough patch, you know, not only does it build you physically, but mentally strong as well, that you can get through anything. A lot of it's you know, a mindset. So as long as you have the proper mindset and build off that, and you can get over and get through anything with the proper mindset. So, and I'm big on, I usually during prep, I listen to personal development type podcasts or books. So that kind of helps with, that helps prep a lot easier, especially the whole David Goggins, if you're familiar with him. He's definitely been a lot of motivation, inspiration when it comes to staying disciplined and keeping that mind strong, so.
100%. Is there outside of David Goggins, is there a kind of a go-to podcast in terms of personal development that you like to listen to a lot?
I like let's see, Real AF with Andy Frisella. That's a really good one, because he's straight to the point and just no nonsense when it comes to that. So definitely like him. Tom Bilyeu of he's another good one too, on different guests that he has on there. And then of course, bodybuilding podcasts, those are always a favorite of mine as well. So I'm actually that weirdo. I don't listen to music during my workouts. I listen to podcasts during my workout. So definitely would not recommend listening to bro chat while working out during a set, because you'll end up laughing and dropping the weights. So, but yeah.
Excellent, man. You're gonna have to add Behind the Muscle podcast to that playlist,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. So let's step back into your professional experiences and story a little bit. So you did some personal training. I want to talk about being in the supplement store industry for a little bit, because you said you did that for close to a decade. What were some of the things that you liked about being in the supplement store industry business? Maybe what were some of the things that you didn't like, and why didn't you just continue to pursue being in that career?
Supplements. Well, I liked one of the top sides is obviously meeting people. You meet people all sorts of walks of life, like from business people to people who are down on the luck to, just experiencing people's different perspectives on, their lifting journeys and overall just life. So it was really cool to, kind of meet a lot of the people in the supplement industry throughout those 10 years. I met, it's a really good way to network too. So that's what I really liked about the supplement industry, is networking with a lot of different people. So, and then also obviously educating people on certain supplements and leading them to the right direction on what they need to kind of fit their needs to meet their goals. So that was also another fulfilling thing, And then I guess another, what I didn't really care for was you always have that person that just, there has to be a magic pill, it's just like, obviously, in sales, you have to sell them something, or, so, you sell them like, hey, this is, a pretty good product. So you might want to look into this. And, sometimes they'll come back and like, this didn't do anything for me. And, it's like, I remember one time this lady, we had a popular fat burner that we're selling a lot. This lady came in and she heard about it. She came in, she's like, she came in, look at the box, she's like, do I got to work out with this? I was like, yes, ma'am. I would highly recommend it. She's like, oh, I ain't got time for that. Puts it back on the shelf and leaves, So it's just kind of seeing those customers. So that was kind of like the downside. A lot of people think that there's like a magic pill or something like that to help them meet their goals. But, what's cool is, I was always telling them, like, it's not all about supplements, it's about your nutrition, your workouts, your recovery, educating them on that. So I think a lot of them, educating a lot of the customers, it kind of helps obviously meet their goals and progress towards where they want to be. So it's really cool. So that was the more ups and downs in the supplement industry for me, at least.
So how did you become the muscle mechanic? How did you get into the body work, the massage, and kind of everything that you've got going on now?
Well, I got it through my own pain. So I was dealing with some pain for myself. Like there was one day I was like doing leg extensions, leg press. I was having bad knee pain, bad low back pain. It's just debilitating to the point where, I would do a couple of sets. I'm like, I can't finish this, It's just too excruciating. And I didn't want to make anything worse. So it was through my own pain. I was dealing with, like I said, really bad knee pain, low back pain. and just couldn't find answers. You know, you would go to the doctor, he'll look at you, you know, like, oh, well, just stop working out for a couple of weeks, and you know, here's a pain pill. You know, with unfortunately with doctors in this age, it's they'll give you a Band-Aid, like, here, take a pill. You know, and at the time I went to physical therapy, and unfortunately it was kind of a joke because, you know, they'll take your insurance and you go in there, they'll put a TINS on it, they'll put a TINS unit on you, and then put you on a bike, and you're out the door in like 10 to 15 minutes, and they give you some at-home exercises, and it's just like, okay. And so, which I believe now the physical therapy industry is getting a lot better with that, so which is awesome to see. But I wish when I was doing my pain, I wish they cared a little bit more instead of just, you know, being a collection of insurance money. And then those weren't working out for me, obviously. Still same pain, same rest, all that, just nothing helped. And then I came across one of my friends. She's a doctor of chiropractic, Dr. Caroline Carpenter. She focuses more on soft tissue work than she does bone. So she was actually going through some certifications like thoracic technique and neurokinetic therapy, and she needed a body to practice on. She said, hey, I'll give you free adjustment and all this if you let me work, you know, practice on you. And so, you know, what really sparked my interest is during one session, she would press somewhere, a certain spot, and I was like, I feel that in my knee. And she's like, yeah. She gave me Ida Rolf's analogy, where you think the pain is at is not where it's not. So, and I was like, that kind of sparked me. I was like, wow, so where you're thinking the pain is at, it's not where it's stemming from. So it was a really cool concept, and it was kind of blew my mind of how pain patterns work. And so that kind of got me doing some digging of my own. So I did some research, and actually came across one of my other modern day favorite bodybuilders, which he doesn't compete anymore. I came across Jason Huh's Instagram, and he made a post about getting some therapy work done. And I was curious. He tagged the therapist, and that kind of led me to a rabbit hole. So it led me to he's now my colleague. So at the time he was my instructor. So I came across his page, and led me to a rabbit hole to his practice, to the school. And I looked up Neurosomatic Therapy. I was like, what is this? And got me really interested, and looked up several videos on the internet about it on YouTube. And I saw that, are you familiar with Elliot Holtz, Strength Camp? He has a big YouTube following. He was promoting, and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, okay. And so I kind of asked my friend, Dr. Caroline, what she thought about it. She's like, hey, I think you should look into it. And then I applied to the school, and I got a Zoom, and then I had a Zoom meeting and kind of interview with him. And then after an interview, I got an email that I got accepted to the program. And this is a time where at the time I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas. So that was about 5 years ago. So in 2016, I applied for the program, got accepted. I had 3 or 4 months to get my stuff together and move down there. So I pretty much packed up my clothes in my car, left everything else, and moved down to Tampa. So, and the program was 18 months. And so my whole goal at the time was to grind out the full 18 months and then move back to Little Rock to open my own practice, which obviously that didn't happen. So went through the program and got stuck here in Tampa in a good way. So I have no regrets. I did a lot of networking while I was in school, you know, going to all these different gyms in the Tampa area. Like, you know, at the time it was Powerhouse Gym. So I used to train at Powerhouse and this gym here called Optimum Gym. And I just made a lot of connections and ended up staying here, building up a clientele, and ended up staying here in Tampa. So it's been growing ever since. I kind of owe that partly to, actually mostly to one of my original clients, Josh Rafferty. He's kind of like a celebrity trainer here in Tampa. So he trains like Dave Bautista, and he works with a lot of WWE clients as well. And so I was working with him. He was dealing with some neck issues because he wasn't able to get full rotation in his neck or look up and down. And I did one session with him, and he was sold. And so he asked me for my information and all that, and got me hooked up with my first WWE client. His name was Samoa Joe, and pretty nervous at the time, but worked on him, and he really liked the work that I did. and that kind of snowballed effect to working on a lot of other WWE wrestlers. So pretty cool stuff. And then I ended up actually, WWE had me fly out to New York City the day after Christmas to work an event at Madison Square Garden. So my first gig with the WWE was in Madison Square Garden at a WWE live event. And so I'm over there backstage. I see John Cena. I see Kane. I see all these wrestlers that I grew up watching. And I was just like, holy crap. And that kind of just snowballed into what it is today. It's pretty crazy stuff. So. Yeah,
no, that is crazy. And it's really cool. Now, before we kind of get into, talking a little bit more about, the WWE and some of the bodybuilders and things like that you've had the pleasure of working on, explain to myself and the listeners, Matt, what is this neurosomatic therapy? Like what is it, a type of massage? Just explain the nuts and bolts, because I personally couldn't give a definition for it at all.
Yeah. So basically, neurosomatic therapy is an integrative form of manual therapy that, identify and corrects structural and biomechanical patterns in the body that cause you chronic pain. So I look at the body structurally, kind of see where the issues are stemming from. So instead of treatment and symptoms, I go to the source of the issue. So now if we break down the term neurosomatic, neuro refers to the brain and the nervous system, while somatic refers to the body. So neurosomatic, so my therapy simply examines the ways in which the relationship between you, your mind, and body manifests in your posture. So my goal is to reprogram your nervous system through massage, bodywork, and corrective exercise. And through this process, it'll allow your body to use more efficient movement patterns that ultimately relieve stress and overburdened tissues and help restore optimal health.
Very cool. Now, what type of do you use any tools within your practice? Like, do you do any type of scraping, cupping, anything like that? And if so, which ones do you feel like are very legit tools or practices within the body work?
I use a few tools. I do a little bit of Christman therapy, IASTM, which is called instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization. So those are the scraping tools, like you said. I use those. A lot of people say, oh, it breaks up the fascia and all that, which is totally a farce. It literally just brings more blood flow to the surface. So it complements my work just to bring more blood flow to that surface area of the part that I'm working on. Also use percussive therapy, like the Theragun or the Hypervolt that you guys see advertised as well. I use those, but I usually use this medical device called rapid release therapy gun. That one I use a lot. And then I also use the Neufit, the Newbie by Neufit. So that's a electromagnetic stimulation. A lot of people ask what's the difference between that and the TENS unit. The TENS unit uses an active current. This Newbie uses a direct current, which your central nervous system recognizes. So what it does, it hijacks the central nervous system to bring more neurological activity to the musculature that are not firing correctly, and causing different muscles go into spasm, and kind of helps reverse that and brings more neurological activity to the musculature that are causing you pain. And so basically bringing you good input so you can have a better output in whatever musculatures that are causing you range of motion issues or pain. And right. So those are the.
Go ahead.
Those are the techniques that I use, and also hands-on stuff as well.
So the main part of your practice, the neurosomatic therapy, that's actually you with your hands doing different things with somebody's body. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So let's first of all, I want to ask you about your own pain, because you said your own pain was kind of the stimulus or the spark to kind of get you trying to figure out what was going on and led you in this rabbit hole. And then it's become an entire profession, which I think is really cool. what was kind of causing your pain? And then have you been able to kind of work through that? And are you pain free to this day with those initial pains that started this whole journey?
Sure. So through the program, you know, we pretty much do trade-offs. We trade with different students and all that, doing, you know, to practice and all that. So looking at my postural analysis chart, so which we do 82 measurements from standing, sitting, and lying down, kind of see where your postural distortions are and from where your pain is stemming from. And so with me, I actually found out that I have a structural short leg on my right side. And so that was the initial cause of a lot of my low back pain and knee pain that I was having. And so just to confirm, I went and got an x-ray, a standing x-ray by a good friend of mine, Dr. Mello Ramirez at Results Chiropractic, and got him there, met him there, and got a standing x-ray. And come to find out, I had a structural short leg, which measured around 8 millimeters, which is more than 1/4 of an inch. So it's a very significant short leg. And so what we do with that in neurosomatic therapy is prescribing a foot lift. So it's a full foot lift, which I actually have in my shoe. So I'll show you here. So it's a foot lift here, full foot lift right there. And so that, so a foot lift, and I put it in my shoe, obviously, and it balances everything out. And as soon as I put the lift in my shoe and did legs the next couple of days, I had 0 knee pain or back pain afterwards. It was insane. So of how much 8 millimeters makes a difference, which obviously is significant. And so, yeah, and I'm able to, obviously through the schooling, I'm able to help kind of find that in a lot of my other clients that I work with, having a structural leg length inequality. And I know some of these, I know chiropractors tend to prescribe like a heel lift, which I've actually had several that have heel lifts that come see me that I got them out of the heel lift into a full foot lift, because I mean, obviously you're elevating the heel, but you're just elevating the heel. You need to elevate the whole foot. So it makes sense. And I've actually made improvements for people from heel lifts to foot lifts, made a dramatic difference. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I discovered how I got on my pain, was I had a structural leg length. And let me backtrack a little bit there. So getting treatment done, like we worked the musculature that would cause, we thought it was a functional leg lift, which means basically a functional leg lift means it's more musculature that's causing it, like certain muscles like the psoas is pulling up on the hip and causing that postural distortion. So after getting that to release, I'd feel good for a couple of days, and then afterwards go back to the same pain pattern, because the muscles would obviously shift back to the original position. So, but obviously after discovering that it was structural, had no issue since.
Now, I want to ask about, the type of body work that you do and bodybuilding, right? I own a gym. I'm a trainer and kind of all the things, right? Within that type of a setting. And I compete in bodybuilding myself. And the more that I learn, there's so much more than just the stimulus through the strength training in the gym when it comes to bodybuilding, building muscle, health, longevity, right? It's more of what you do outside of the gym from my personal perspective than what you do in the gym in terms of bodybuilding. Sure. So I guess kind of what I want to get at is, how can, neurosomatic therapy, how can body work in general be an overall benefit to a bodybuilder?
So, I call it the power of posture. So, I mean, it doesn't take an expert to figure out that poor posture can be harmful in the long run. So, I mean, your posture can affect the way your body works. And by the same token, the way your body works can affect your posture, obviously. So form follows function. So poor and imbalanced posture can lead to inflammation, arthritis, joint degeneration, and chronic pain. It can even lead to problems in other areas of your body, like your lymphatic, circulatory, digestive, and endocrine system, to name a few. So in concurrence with the bodybuilding aspect, obviously that plays a big role with body work get done, because you're like a living web. Like your entire body is laced with a web of connective tissue, obviously called fascia. And so, which wraps around all your bones, muscles, and organs in your body, all the way down to the cellular level. So it divides your body into different compartments and acts like a scaffolding to support all the structures within it. So your nerves, blood vessels, bones, muscles, and organs. So distortions or excess tension in the fascial web can, implode the flow of blood, lymph, and nerve signals. So more significantly, these stressors on your body can obviously have a negative effect, the activity of like your organs, like your kidneys, your bladder and gut, and even your brain. So, having, obviously the muscle mechanic here. So with bodybuilding, dealing with all these people in the bodybuilding industry, or your common gym rat, think of me, I like everyone to think of me as a mechanic for your body. So, just as you expect your car to break down, if you fail to address like a bent frame, or if you allow the wheels to fall out of alignment, you can expect the same thing from your body. So if you don't maintain it properly, it's going to cause issues down the line. You're going to be able to perform different lifting moves as you once were able to, and just can cause an array of issues. So through NST, we can simply recognize and harness the various physical laws and that act upon your body to bring function back into a cohesive piece with your body design. So, your body's like an ultimate high performance sports car, and my job is to help it function that way for you. So that's why I find that to be the most important aspect for bodybuilders, to get body work done, because they're constantly, moving those weights, moving muscles, building muscle on top of muscle. It's a lot of those can cause large postural distortions to where you can't feel that contraction or get that reset range of motion that they're usually getting. So body work is definitely a vital part, and I feel like in anybody's life, whether you're a bodybuilder or just an everyday Joe.
I absolutely love that car analogy. That's something that I use all the time. It's like, man, people put so much money into their vehicle. And I'm not necessarily always talking about right now bodybuilders, but just, if I'm just talking to a normal Joe or Jane in the gym, it's like, we put so much money into our vehicles. Like you take it through the wash, and you wax it, and the oil changes and the tire rotations, like all this stuff. It's like, we have one body. Why would you not invest and maintain your body, so then you don't have that motor blow up or a tire pop or what have you? We can't prevent all of that, but man, we can do a lot to really maintain and just have that, again, that preventative maintenance. I think it's I think that's a great analogy, Matt. Now, in terms of bodybuilders, what's kind of like the biggest problem issue when they come in to see you, that you see overall, generally speaking?
Probably shoulder issues, shoulder and low back issues. I feel like is the most common, because you're constantly working these external internal rotators in the shoulder. And I have a lot of people come in and like, man, I have really bad front shoulder pain. Like I can't press. And you see people at the gym, they press on their dumbbells or whatever, they rack their weights or drop the dumbbells, and they get up and they always rub their shoulder. That's not where it's stemming from. They're always constantly taking a lacrosse ball or a Theragun or what have you into that shoulder, when that's not where it's stemming from. A lot of it's stemming from your external internal rotators of the muscles that sit on top of the scapularis, which is your infra and supraspinatus muscles. So I work on a lot of the infra and supraspinatus muscles for a lot of people, because it limits them that range of motion, and causing that shoulder pain when they're doing pressing motions, or even reaching up to get something, or even sleeping. Like a lot of them get like almost like numbing hands when they're. So it's a lot of entrapment going on either in the large shoulder stabilizers or stuff that's going on in their neck as well. So, and of course, low back stuff as well. So which I address all the time, your psoas, which is one of the biggest muscles in your body. It's the only muscle that crosses 3 planes of your body. So it's connected from your L spine all the way down to your lesser trochanter. So it crosses the pelvis as well. So that call that the hidden prankster of causing, that's one of the main issues of people having low back pain. And so working that, as well as, there are other hip rotators such as your TFL and your glute minimus and medius. So those are a lot of the issues that I see: hips, low back, shoulders, pretty much. It's what I deal with a lot.
When it comes to training in the gym, lifting weights, is there a specific recommendation that you have that is ideal or maybe more beneficial for somebody that is training for hypertrophy? Is there maybe some movements that we should avoid, or a training style that we should maybe think twice about before we kind of move in that direction? What's your take on that specifically, Matt?
I think you should move in a way that your body is able to. Like, a lot of people force these ranges of motion, and when they don't need to, when that's their range, they just need to focus on their end point of where, the contraction is at, and, coming down on the eccentric, they want to go past a little bit further because they're supposed to, but that's their range. So I would just stick to lifting in their range of motions. As far as doing like pre-workout type stuff, I'm a huge fan of doing FRC, which is functional range conditioning motions. So it's almost like, so doing like pails and rails, or cars, if you will, as well, before your before the workouts. I highly recommend that. So cars is controlled articulation rotation. So like I send people to do before the workouts, do different car routines for the shoulders and the glenohumeral joint, the GH joint. So a lot of people have shoulder issues. I have them go through different articulations of motions in FRC cars. So that's what I recommend, whether you're doing especially like hip stuff, like doing 90-90s and all that. Like if you're doing legs, definitely would do that about 10 to 15 minutes before the workout. So that highly recommend doing some type of articulation ranges of motion for whatever body part you're working.
Excellent. Do you have a few more minutes, or do we need to wrap it up?
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about, you mentioned and brought up the WWE. I posted on my Instagram stories in regards to having this conversation with you, a picture of you and Sean Clarita. That was, I think, your last post on your Instagram.
Yeah.
So talk about the opportunity with the WWE. Talk about, working with some of these top athletes and bodybuilders. Talk about some of those experiences, please, Matt.
Yeah. So with the WWE, obviously my first ever WWE client was Samoa Joe, and obviously that led to a snowball effect because Tampa used to be the hotbed for wrestlers, but now it's in Orlando. Now it's the Performance Center is in Orlando, so you'll have a lot of wrestlers that still live around here. And so I kind of, at the time before I had this office, I was doing mobile work, and so that was a luxury for the WWE guys. They just, me going to their house, not to go out in public and all that. So that kind of worked on. So that obviously snowballed into working with a lot of these different pros, just because through word of mouth, they're like, oh, they see me post with WWE client, they're like, oh, this guy has to be legit, he works with wrestlers. And so that kind of snowballed into working with several IFBBs, which one of my favorites, consider her family, Michaela Acock, having her as well, kind of referring people to me to use, it's kind of snowballed me and catapulted me into the IFBB pro realm, to working with a lot of the athletes there. So I've got the pleasure of working with several IFBB pros, from Sean Clarita, the real Lois Lane, Rachel Daniels, Arnold Classic champ Terrence Ruffin, and everyone else in between. So it's been really cool working Rachel Jones. She won the Texas show, she's women's physique. And also working on several different high-end coaches like Phil Viz, good friend of mine, as well as Justin Mahaley of Team Mahaley. So yeah, getting in contact with them, and it's kind of like like a referral, like a constant networking and constantly referring people out. So it's really cool of how the word of mouth and people just and networking with other people to spread the word of the work that I do. So that's kind of how, that's where it got me to where I am today.
Tell me how you ended up at Mi40 Gym. That's IFBB Ben Pekulski's private gym. I know, you get on Instagram and there's IFBB pros and elite athletes coming in and out of those doors just to train there, right?
Absolutely.
And you get to practice out of there. How did that come to be?
So I was working with, so I call him my adopted son, Ryan Crowley, the guy, infamously towards Peck, training with Larry Wheels. So he was here training pretty much for the past year or two for the nationals, and we developed a really good friendship and all that. Me and my fiance call him our adopted son, like I said, and he kind of got in the ear of Ben and Amanda say, hey, you should bring Matt in, and I think they're looking to rinse the space out, some empty offices that they had open, and so kind of talked with Ben and Amanda and kind of worked things out, and been here since May of this year. So it's been going really well ever since. I'm like, literally, as soon as you walk in, you see my office. So you'll see a big sign that says the muscle mechanic on the window there. So it's and people always look and they're like, man, what's this? And I get a lot of foot traffic as well, just inquiries on my availability and what I do. And so yeah, it's been great. That's kind of how I got into Mi40, was through pretty much Ryan Crowley. So if he sees this, props to you, my boy.
Now, we're gonna start wrapping things up here in a couple minutes, but I want to ask you, because you've actually brought up just in your conversation the word networking several times, and I kind of see your entire business that you have is basically birthed through networking. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about that.
So I probably maybe do a couple of like promotional ads on my Instagram. Like I think I did a promotion with one of my WWE wrestlers I work with, Finn Balor, and that got a really good hit too. But I haven't done any of that since. It's just really people posting me, reposting me, and I get a lot of inquiries through my social media on Instagram. I don't do much of Facebook anymore because I think here lately that's been terrible for business. So I haven't even touched my Facebook in a long time. And so basically a lot of my stuff is through Instagram and word of mouth through here in Tampa. So yeah, networking has been huge for me. I mean, you meet several people. It's like that 6 degrees of separation. You know someone that knows someone that knows someone. So that rings true on a lot of things. And so that's kind of what boosted my business, is through constantly networking. I go to some of these seminars, like the Excellence Cartel. They have a seminar called the Physique Education Collective, which I've actually had the opportunity to speak at a couple of years ago in Denver. And so that also led to networking opportunities and long-lasting friendships as well. So like I work with Austin Stout. He's a really good friend of mine, and I'm actually had been summoned to go to his place in January, which I've been to his place a couple of times, where I pretty much set up at his house. He has 12 to 15 clients lined up for me for the weekend. And so I do a little bit of traveling with it sometimes too. So if there's anyone that needs my services, if you can get at least 10 people to make it worth my while, I'll be gladly to fly out to wherever you're at. So yeah, networking has been huge for me.
How do you, as somebody who is in a service industry like yourself, and I find this, owning a business and, being a trainer, people, when you're working one-on-one with people, sometimes they can bring a lot of baggage into that session. They're bringing they're bringing their own energy into that session. And as somebody that is a trainer like myself, somebody who's a practitioner like yourself, like we're absorbing that energy, right? We're absorbing that baggage. If somebody's having a bad day and they need to release that onto us, like we're going to get it for better or for worse. So my question, Matt, is in terms of mental health and you just taking care of yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself for your clients, what do you do for your own mental health and your own sanity to keep yourself where you need to be to continue to grow this business and to give to these people what you're giving?
Just creating balance. That helps a lot. And my fiance is a huge supporter of me, and obviously in what I do. And so, you know, I see all these people, I get, like you said, I receive and give out certain energies. I mean, there's sometimes that it can affect the way, you know, I work with, you know, on some people. Sometimes they'll be a successful and they'll be like, I could have done better. But, you know, I get through it. I kind of mentally, you know, kind of block it out and kind of talk through it with them on some of the things that we're going through. Cause you know, it's a relief for them too. So, I mean, so what I do for myself, I kind of, although I'm a extrovert, I also can be an introvert, kind of both. So I see people all day. So when I get home, I literally don't want to deal with anyone. Like I just want to be with my fiance and my dogs, and that's it. And I pretty much do a whole reset the weekend. So that's kind of how I handle everything. Kind of get a mental reset, kind of take care of myself too. I actually get body work done for myself from one of my colleagues. So I'll obviously do that and take care of myself the best I can. So that's kind of what I do. Just kind of get a mental break, reset, and kind of, you know, kind of release those bad, you know, auras off of me and get back after it on a Monday. You know, Monday, I love Mondays. It's just a way to set the tone for the week. And it's like, you know, you get to put your jersey on and go into the game, you know? So that's kind of how I take on, that's my perspective and attitude when it comes to like the new week. And that's kind of how, you know, towards the end of the week, I get drained. And that's how I reset. I hang out with my dogs and my fiance, eat a nice dinner, take her out to dinner, have a drink, an old fashioned or two, and wind down and talk about our week or day, all that. So that's kind of how I get through that, past that.
Very cool. All right, we're gonna finish it up here. One thing I want to ask you before I kind of give you the platform to close this out, Matt. In terms of business, right? It sounds like for the most part, it's been pretty linear for you in terms of the networking and then the business growth. But there are downs, you know, within business. There are downs being an entrepreneur. What are a couple lessons that you've learned over the last several years of being a business owner and being in the practice that you have?
Definitely go with everything with gratitude. Have gratitude for the things you have and the things that you don't have, and always stay resilient through even the down times. You gotta bust through that. And it's I think the hard times obviously bring better times, and obviously also brings new growth. So even if you're down and out during business, you feel like you're barely keeping your head above water, just, you know, like Finding Nemo, keep swimming, you know, keep going and just stay resilient. And those days will pass and you'll see, you know, that light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll be on your way as long as you stay dedicated, disciplined, and have a heart of gratitude every day. And I think you'll be successful.
Is body work essential for everybody, or do you think it's just something that people should do every once in a while, or only if they're an athlete?
I think it's essential for everyone, every walks of life. I see a 65-year-old blind guy. I go to his place because he's obviously is impaired. So I go see him. He's in his 60s. He's into weightlifting too. He's just all about. He's definitely keeping the body work to keep functioning. I think everyone can use it. Even, you know, I hate the excuse from people that say, "Oh, it's part of getting old." I'm like, no, it's your body telling you something is wrong. So that's what I like to give out to people. Like, if you think that's how life is supposed to be, no, life is better when it's pain-free. So definitely, I think everyone should get some form of body work, whether it's massage, even just standard Swedish massage, even if it's just there to make you feel good for about an hour. And then, so I think everyone should get some form of body work done, because it's very beneficial in the long term and in the short term.
Is chiropractic work something that you're a huge proponent of as well?
Depending on the practitioner. Like I said earlier, my good friend Dr. Mello, he has fantastic work. Me and him see eye to eye on a lot of things, and he's definitely we actually share a lot of the same clients as well. So we kind of like let each other know, give a heads up, like, hey, you might want to do this and this, and, you know, work this. So depending on the chiropractic, a lot of them A lot of them just want your money. They're like, all right, let me adjust you here, and you're on your way. I'll see you next week. It's like, why have to see you again? His goal and my goal is to not see you all the time. Like, if anything, maybe like once a month, just for maintenance. So everything should hold position with the work that we do. Should hold position really well to where you can only see us. Where you only see us once a month for maintenance. So yeah, definitely some chiropractors. So definitely, if you have a chiropractor that speaks in absolutes, just dump them. Definitely go with the ones that are open-minded, and very knowledgeable on knowledgeable of what they're doing and explaining things. So definitely would go with that type of chiropractor work. So yeah, I'm a proponent of chiropractic work.
Awesome, Matt. I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your holiday weekend to chop it up with me, share a little bit of your story. If you have any final thoughts or any final words or any shout outs or anything like that you want to share right now, please do that, Matt. And then where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Where can people reach out to you?
I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity for being on here. I'd like to give a shout out to my fiance, Heather, and thank you for support and always being there. I love you. Also, Dr. Mello, for being a good friend and a great associate of working with me and our clients together. And everyone else that are a client of mine, I really appreciate the trust and opportunity to help keep you and get you out of pain, because life is better when it's pain-free, like I said. And everyone can find me at Next Level or Nothing on my Instagram, and on Facebook, it's just Matthew Christman on Facebook. You guys can follow me there, add me as a friend. If you have any messages or anything, inquiries about that, you can always hit me up through my email, which is nextlevelpxs@gmail.com, or you can DM me on my Instagram. Be more than happy to connect with you and kind of help you figure out ways to get you out of pain.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you again so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story, my man. I appreciate it. Okay.
I appreciate you, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Those of you who are tuning in again to Behind the Muscle podcast, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform or you're listening, viewing, watching through YouTube, I just want to say thank you to you. It is Thanksgiving weekend here stateside. So those of you that are taking that time to listen to the podcast, watch the podcast, I appreciate it, because the podcast exists because of you. Just a few things really quickly. I would just ask of you, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Also hit the like button on YouTube, and then go into the comment section on YouTube and leave your favorite part of Matt's story, or just something that you gleaned from Matt today. I love getting those comments. It's always greatly appreciated. One other thing I would ask of you, if you would please take this episode of the podcast, Behind the Muscle podcast with Matt Christman, and share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Matt, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know you listened and you found great value specifically in Matt's episode. I would love that. That's really important, guys, because that's how more people find the podcast, more people listen, and more people are positively impacted through the stories of my guests. And that's ultimately what I want. I want these coaches, these bodybuilders, these practitioners to share their stories. I want people to listen to their stories, and I want people's lives to be positively impacted. So make sure you share this on your Instagram stories. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.